next hour. Joe-skeehusen, am I pronouncing that right, guys? Seehusen is the president and CEO of an amazing organization, and that's Liberty Guard, founded and headed up by former Congressman Bob Barr, and Libertarian presidential candidate in 2008. And we really appreciate Mr. Seehusen for coming on the broadcast with us. The website's libertyguard.org. And we've got these reports out on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Watchdog probes DHS spying on Drudge and others. FOIA request investigates whether critics of TSA are being listed as domestic extremists. And then continuing, we have another headline. Bob Barr investigates TSA stand-down on National Opt-Out Day. Here's their own headline. TSA manipulates National Opt-Out Day. Liberty Guard files the FOIA request to TSA regarding political manipulation. So he's with us for the rest of the hour. Joe, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for coming on, Alex, and thanks for your leadership on this issue. And our chairman, Bob Barr, and our group, LibertyGuard.org, picked up on a lot of that and went ahead and filed this. And we're hoping to get to the bottom of this. So this, we think, a pretty serious issue, which is, the potential that the TSA has manipulated the potential protests from these opt-out folks like that would not choose willingly to go through this sort of degrading and questionably constitutional procedure. So we appreciate that leadership.
Well, break down what your organization does and why you've started investigating the TSA stand-down, but you're going further than that. You're also burrowing in to this reported TSA memo calling people domestic extremists who don't like having the government put their hands down their pants.
Yeah, absolutely. Liberty Guard, and again, our chairman, Bob Barr, and myself and others put together Liberty Guard. It's a group that's really committed to protecting individual liberties and freedoms, and certainly using the Constitution as our focal point. And we just saw this, and it was one of these gut reactions where everyone said, this is wrong. And I think we've all been wondering, at what point do everyday Americans decide to stand up for their liberties and say enough is enough? And I think it's probably right when the government bureaucrats begin to grab for our junk, if you will. I think people all over the country are outraged. They've looked at these incidences where children and women that have had mastectomies and men that have various issues with bladder control and so on are really being humiliated. And there's a serious question as to whether this is at all effective. And there's a serious constitutional question. And so we basically said, let's create this opt-outalliance.com, which we did, and let folks know what they could do to resist this. And then, lo and behold, there was all this groundswell and grassroots excitement, internet excitement, and people were geared up, in effect, to question some of this. And the TSA looks as if they basically shut down many of these machines. And we're asking the question, why is that? I mean, was it that particular day, Thanksgiving, they deemed was they were confident there was going to be no terrorism on that day? I mean, if these machines are so effective, they better have them on all the time. Or was it that they really wanted to kind of quell the national protest from everyday Americans saying, golly, is this protecting us? Is it appropriate?
And they wanted to go further. They wanted to then falsely run the hoax, and we know they did do this, saying no one protested. Everyone loves it. This turned into National Appreciation Day.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're involved in multi-deceptions, but looking at this, I mean, it's got to be illegal. If they're saying, sorry, got to remove that piercing. Sorry, got to put my hands down your baggy pants. Sorry, got to naked body scan you. They lied about not saving the images. And then they claim Al-Qaeda is such an imminent threat that they've got to, remove people's colostomy bags, you name it. All of this is happening. But then They totally stand down the day before Thanksgiving, stand down on Thanksgiving and the day after because they knew protesters will be flying back home. Our intel is this went on for about 3 days, and then now it's back. I mean, this is asinine. And then Ron Paul, they grab his crotch. Jesse Ventura, they grab his crotch. They don't want to fly. But then we have Congressman Boehner. He gets to walk around. The cabinet gets to walk around. I mean, this is serious discrimination as well. This is selective enforcement on multi-fronts.
Well, no question. And I mean, this is going to have to be for everybody. I mean, if we're all going to have our crotches grabbed, I think that's got to be a 100% across the board, and it should start certainly with our president and all of Congress and all the Senate. And everybody's got to understand and experience that, which I have done, by the way. I flew recently and had that uniquely interesting experience. And so absolutely, it has to be across the board. If indeed the TSA did this for political reasons, I think that's a real serious question. And even as interesting, if the mainstream media is in any way complicit in this, I think there ought to be some real questions asked about that. Because you're right, they're trying to make it out as TSA Appreciation Day. Geez, everyday Americans don't care about this. Well, they do. And did they take action to really quell what was a legitimate public uprising at this point?
Now, let's talk about this card you've got. It's good to show solidarity. I pointed this out a month ago. Now even the New York Times admits this is like Tea Party 2.0. This is a focal point for outrage, a coming together that is transpartisan, that is across the political spectrum, and almost every major national poll shows over 60%, some in Reuters 96%, against what's happening. And the TSA just brazenly says, no, everyone loves it. And, you know, and by the way, we'll give you an $11,000 fine. Even if you want to leave the airport, we've got to squeeze your junk. Then they go on and admit, they told Atlantic Monthly and others, we are squeezing you to intimidate you into the machines. Then we have D'Amato and we have Chertoff and all these other people formerly in government, now in the companies making money. I mean, this thing is dirty from A to Z.
It absolutely is. And I think the American people have been, I think that the pretense is over. I think they understand that the government now is in many ways self-serving meaning self-serving itself, self-serving its bureaucrats and its special interests. And the people that are getting the absolute raw, frighteningly raw end of the stick are everyday Americans. And if you will, and I believe you used this word, I think it's time for the resistance, and that means pretty much everyday Americans, to kind of begin to stand up and say there are lines that are drawn, and we're not going any further. And, we have constitutional rights, and that works for us, and we're tired of believing them.
All right, Joe-Skeehusen, President and CEO of Liberty Guard, founded and headed up, of course, by former Congressman Bob Barr. Again, let's get into this card. How do folks get involved with the organization? How do they get the card? Because people are like, well, so what, a card? The point is, it's like having an ACLU card or an NAACP card. Back in the 60s, some Klan member cop pulls over a black person and they give them that NAACP card. That lets them know, hey, we're part of an organization that's going to stand up for us. And I think it's a great idea to show the solidarity and be part of a group. How do you get one of these cards?
Easiest and best way, just go to libertyguard.org, libertyguard.org, and right at the top of that is how to get the Opt-Out Alliance card. And the card, you're right, it basically says that, we question this procedure, we question the constitutionality. Here's some things that in our best understanding is these are your rights and options. We've done some research on this, and here's some things you could do if you choose to challenge it. I think it's prudent for all of us to understand that if we challenge it, the TSA is kind of in the business of making life challenging for those who challenge it. And so I think people would have to make an individual decision if they want to do that, because it could be uncomfortable. It could delay them an hour or two or more. So I think people want to think through that. But the folks who want to say, hey, I'm challenging it, and here's some steps that I'm willing to take, and or I'd show them, hey, by the way, I'm not sure this. Here's my Opt-Out Alliance card from Liberty Guard, and pay attention, because everyday folks are really starting to draw the line what they'll put up with.
Now, Joe, as you know, government and corrupt bullies of any type They will always push. As Thomas Jefferson said, the level of tyranny you will live under is the exact amount you put up with. It's unlimited. Because if we put up with anything, more and more corrupt people will gravitate into government to get that petty power, to be able to abuse people, like the private Federal Reserve has now come out, giving over $1 trillion to private corporations, not just banks, including MSNBC. They won't tell us where $885 billion more of it went. That's Bloomberg today. I mean, we've got to really come to grips with the fact that we're not in Kansas anymore. The corruption it's like blood poisoning. We have got to get this infection under control, or bye-bye America, bye-bye Republic. And on this TSA front, they admit they want to be on the streets of America with Viper teams. They have said, both Pistol, the head of the TSA, and Napolitano, the head of Homeland Security, that they want to have TSA in every community. Literal minimum wage goons with unlimited above-the-law power running around doing this. This is a 10th Amendment issue. They're harassing people with disabilities. It's a major issue there, and this is the big fight. And bullies always push. Now we're pushing back. They're kind of standing down. Pistol came out yesterday and said, well, we'll just have a no-fly for everybody unless we say you're authorized. And so they're expanding that. The White House wants a no-fly, no-gun buy. So we're really seeing this as an internal checkpoint federal brown shirt system. Your views on those statements?
Well, I think you're hitting on some fascinating, critically important points. I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, the government and the bureaucrats are basically saying, by virtue of their actions, American people, what will you put up with? Will you put up with being groped? Will you be forced to take out prosthetic advice for a woman who's lost a breast through cancer? What will you put up with?
Power grab.
It's a power grab, Alex. You're right, and it's also part of the test.
Yes.
And part of it may be, again, there may be kind of nefarious folks conspiring. That's certainly a possibility. The other possibility is they've just got way too much money, way too much big budgets, and they sit around at high-paid jobs and dream up ways to expand their empire. And for the TSA and the Homeland Security at all,
so mission creep. This is more like mission warp speed.
It's mission creep, warp speed. Well said. And I think one of the things we'd like to do at Liberty Guard and the Opt-Out Alliance is to get this ball rolling with the TSA groping and get, again, everyday Americans. This is not just a handful of freedom fighters. Americans have to become a nation of freedom fighters, and through your excellent work, Alex, a lot of that is happening. And basically have to say, we're going to push back on the groping thing. Our genitals are the line in the sand. And then they're hopefully going to begin to say, now that we look at this, are there other things that are being done by our government? And again, some of it Republican, some of it Democrat. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit group. We're here to protect civil liberties and the Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and have everyday Americans begin to question, what other programs are in place that are inappropriate that we need to question.
Well, I like what you're doing, though, because the ACLU model is that if it's kind of a liberal or socialistic thing, they'll defend it. If it's seen as conservative rights, they won't. And I'm not saying I'm totally against them. They've done some good things on occasion. But it's always about you go file a complaint with them. And they're this Valhalla, up on the hill, or like in the Greek mythology, the Greek gods up on Mount Olympus. I like the fact that you're saying, look, we don't want you behind Liberty Guard. We want you right beside Liberty Guard. This is a participation sport. Liberty is a participation sport, and we're here to advise you on how to go out and say no. And I like the slogan, every day is an opt-out day.
Every day is an opt-out day, and you're absolutely right. And we are certainly, again, nonpartisan. We like and dislike Republicans just as much as we like and dislike Democrats. But we want to work with the whole spectrum of Americans who love freedom, you and other folks on radio and television, some real fine groups out there doing work, and we say, hey, we want to be part of it. We want to make our contribution. But this has to be a national movement. Every day is opt-out day, and this is really about finding the depths of what Americans will put up with in terms of the profligate kind of spending that government's doing, the debt, various questionable war activity overseas, and now this just despicable kind of touching, patting down in the name of civil liberties.
Well, what about federal grants for DWI? I'm sorry to interrupt, but what about federal grants? Here in Austin, they have federal grants for warrantless checkpoints where cops in the dead of night take your blood, and it's federal. What is the federal government doing funding local police to be scurrying around like Nosferatu?